Well, welcome to the Headless Am with Cloudinary Bootcamp, the last one. After this one, we're done with the entire bootcamp, and you can go get certified. It's going to be awesome for you. Now, today's lesson is all about tagging and its role in media management, presented by Angela Regal. She's the Technical Customer Success Manager at Cloudinary. Now, with that said, I'm going to bring her on. Angela, welcome. Glad to have you here. I'm going to let you get started in just a second. For those of you watching live, please feel free to put in any questions in the chat. I'll go ahead and ask Angela, but Angela, it's all yours.
Good morning, Marcelo. Thanks for having me. As you said, today we're going to talk about tagging and its role in media management. We'll talk about what asset tagging is, talk a little bit about taxonomy. We'll take a look at categories, metadata, and tags, kind of a compare and contrast between the three. And then we'll take a look at automatic versus manual tagging, and that's the place where you mentioned that the AI piece will come in. All right, well, let's get started. So we're here to learn about digital asset management, right? We're here to learn about our dams and our best practices. Having a dam is a wonderful first step, but if you don't have a well-structured dam, then those wonderful assets that you've been creating aren't going to be of any value because people won't be able to find them. So if we look at our little explorer here, he's lost in an unorganized dam. He can't find anything. He's got thousands of assets around him, but they're not searchable and they're not discoverable. And that means that they're not usable. And so what we need to talk about today is the backbone of your dam, which is a taxonomy, which is the structure that holds it together. And then we'll talk about specifically the role that tagging plays in that. All right, so asset tagging. It's defined as assigning unique identifiers to digital assets like metadata, keywords, and labels. Makes them easier to search, sort, and manage. Basically, you need to identify your assets with phrases and words that will allow your users to be able to find them when they come to search for them. All right, importance of tags when searching for metadata. Whenever you tag your assets, you're going to get faster results to your search queries, and you're going to get more relevant results. That helps improve workflow and collaboration. Your different teams all around your organization will be able to quickly find and use the same assets. So you won't be recreating the wheel. You won't have to have team A making an asset for their campaign and team B making a very similar asset for another campaign, because they'll both be able to find one that they need to use in the dam because it's tagged in a way that lets them find it for that campaign. You'll have reduced duplication and efforts. Like I just said, team A and team B won't be making the same creative resource. They'll be able to go and search the dam and find one that suits their needs. And then you also can enable custom workflows such that you could even employ moderation in your dam, especially if you have like user-generated content. You don't always want to let that just flow right through to your site. So one of the things we can do is set up a custom workflow where we can tag things. Say we tag it either rejected if the moderation rejects it, or we tag it to be reviewed. And then that can trigger a workflow that pushes it off to another part of the dam, waiting for either your AI moderation or your human moderator to take a look at it and either approve or reject it.
Now, real quick question for you, Angela. Sorry to interrupt you there. And also, I want to remind some users that the internet gods aren't with us this morning, so sometimes we both freeze, so just keep that in mind. But the audio is all coming clear, so that's the most important part. But the question for you on tagging, do you have any tips? And if you have this on future slides, please, then we can wait to answer that. But do you have any tips on one of the things is duplicating tags and people, creating variations of a tag, right? Any tips on that you can share?
Sure. So that is actually part and parcel of creating your structure around your taxonomy, which we're about to get into, actually.
Okay, so then we'll wait for that.
No, and it's okay, though. One of the things that an effective dam will have is that if you are allowing users to generate tags on their own, as they start typing, it should have kind of that type ahead technology that as they start to type the first few characters, it will populate suggested tags and allow them to pick from there. But another part of your taxonomy and your dam strategy should be user training. And you should let them know that these are our naming conventions. These are our guidelines. And feel free or not to enter tags on your own, but please be cognizant of the fact that we don't want to duplicate tags. So take a look at what's there before you start adding additional tags that are very, very similar.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So exactly like I saw, Marcelo had a perfect lead in there. Asset tagging requires a strategy. You don't want all of your users to be like this grumpy cat who is covered in a litany of tags that are disorganized and don't really make sense to him. They could be duplicated. They could be seemingly irrelevant. But in any case, we need a strategy here. And that is where our taxonomy comes into play. So taxonomy is defined as the practice of classifying and organizing your data and information in a structured way to improve your searchability and retrieval. That is a fancy way of saying that if you set up your dam correctly, all of your users should be able to find the resources that they need at the time that they need them. And then they can use them and push them out into your campaigns. So let's take a minute and look at the anatomy of a taxonomy. So we have our taxonomy is the entire structure of our dam. That's going to be all inclusive. In there, kind of the first level of differentiation that we put to our data are categories and subcategories. And these are going to be categories and subcategories are very broad stroke kind of definitions. These aren't nitty gritty. These aren't granular. These are what you might call your kind of 30,000 feet delineators. They're not asset specific, but they're organization specific or industry specific. So this is the first cut that you're making on your assets to make them usable and make sense for you. The next piece is metadata. And if you are in marketing or creating digital materials already, then you might be aware that all of your assets come in, your images come in with EXIF metadata attached to them already. It's created when the asset is created. But there's also structured and contextual metadata that you can add in either during upload or after the fact. And this is going to start to provide logical information about the asset. This isn't necessarily the subjective information yet. This is objective information still, but it is starting to get more granular and detailed toward the asset itself. And then finally, we get to keywords and attributes. And this is really where the tagging comes into play. Tagging is very asset specific and it can be subjective, but that's okay because this layer of granularity is what allows your users to go out and search in almost a natural language kind of way to find the assets that they need and use them in their campaigns. All right, so a well-designed taxonomy, it's going to meet the needs of your users. It doesn't work if it doesn't fit your user population. It's going to be intuitive and easy to navigate. It's going to have categories and tags that are relevant and meaningful to those users. It's going to have consistent naming conventions that are enforced. And so this is where Marcelo just asked me about, well, what if people start to, type in their own tags and they get redundant or there's typos in them and whatnot. So this is where it's very important that you have consistent naming conventions and that you have some mechanism to enforce them. And then finally, a taxonomy is not a one and done. Just like your organization is constantly evolving and your campaigns and your strategies are constantly evolving, a taxonomy, a good one, is iterative. This isn't an every week or even an every month kind of thing, but maybe yearly or every couple of years, you need to take a look at where your organization is going, where your strategy is, and where your campaigns and your efforts are going, and look at your taxonomy. Take a close, hard look at it and say, does this still meet my needs? Is it aligned with where I'm going? And you'll see I was playing with the Dolly image generator here. Think of it like this. You've got a family of 5 and they have to buy a primary vehicle. Now a smart car is a vehicle and a third row SUV is also a vehicle. They both have tires, they have engines, they have doors, they have seats, they have frames and chassis, steering wheels. They all have these very similar components that make up the basis of the vehicle. But only one of the two really suits the need of, say, a family of 6. If you got a mom and a dad and 4 children, they're not really going to fit very well in that smart car, and it's not going to serve their needs, even though it is, in fact, a vehicle. But that third row SUV, that is going to work for them much, much better. It too is a vehicle. So think of it that way about taxonomies. One taxonomy and another can have the same kind of core components, but they need to be tailored to your users. Otherwise, it's great that you have it, but it's probably not as effective as it could be. So don't give your users a smart car if what they need is that third row SUV, and vice versa. Don't give them something overly big and complex if what they need is something compact and small. Okay.
Another question for you real quick, Angela, if you don't mind, which I think the fourth bullet is an important one: consistent naming conventions that are enforced. And this involves in an organization is breaking down those silos as well, right? When people work in silos, then obviously they start duplicating. Any tips that you work with your clients on how to enforce this? Is this an automated enforcement through systems? Is it a team enforcement where everything has to go through a team before tags are created? Is it a balance? What do you see out there for that?
It's a little bit of everything, but in my world so far, things tend to be manually enforced when it comes to the organic tags. We'll get to the AI tagging, which will generate kind of consistent tags over and over because of the way the models are trained. But when it comes to your naming conventions and your manual tagging, it really is still a manual process where the DAM administrator has to go in and kind of just take a look. But that's a great takeaway.
So do cleanup, basically.
Basically, yeah. But this makes the discovery process when you're building your taxonomy so important. Yeah. You're right. There are silos in organizations. And what I do find for a lot of my clients right now is they don't appreciate how much work they need to put in up front to build and generate a taxonomy that works for them, so that they don't have to go in later after they've uploaded all of their assets and try to reverse engineer this taxonomy. If you put in the effort up front, then it pays dividends in ease and usability down the road. So you do need to pull in all of your stakeholders, or at least a representative from all of your stakeholders, and flesh out this taxonomy and naming conventions and enforcement before you actually start using the DAM. That's best case scenario.
Yeah, definitely. Another quick question for you on synonyms, and different departments will call, they'll have a product image and they may have their own terminology. Marketing may call it something, product may call it something else. I guess that's where tagging would come in, right? Not categories. Tagging, you would have, a tag for your product team, a tag for your marketing team. That way both of them can find it.
Absolutely. And that is why tags are awesome. Tags are user-generated keywords, phrases, descriptions. This is where you get into that subjective piece of identifying your data.
Right.
So it's okay. Tags, unless you have thousands of tags per asset, you're not going to weigh the system down with 100 users putting their own specific tag on an asset. It'll be okay if you have a robust DAM. And in fact, you probably want that because that allows your users to use that more natural language kind of search whenever they're seeking out assets. So having different people use synonyms in the tagging is actually a really beneficial thing, because it allows everybody from different viewpoints to be able to search and find the same asset. But you're right. Your categories need to be clear cut, and they need to be very broad and logical and objective. And your metadata, similarly, should stay very objective and clear cut. But the tags are where you really can express yourself and your feelings about the asset, or your understanding of what it represents and how you would search for it.
Makes sense. Cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right, moving on. So you have the best segues. So let's talk about categories, metadata, and tags. Remember, we had our taxonomy and it had the different layers. So we just kind of touched on this a minute ago. Categories are predefined categories and subcategories that are based on common asset attributes. This is where, like I've said, you're going to do your 30,000 foot or your high level cut of the way your assets can be delineated. And it's going to vary by industry, and it's going to vary by what your business needs. But let's say you're a travel agency. You might delineate the categories as cruising, land-based, and those would be like two major categories for when you're traveling. You're either cruising or you're land-based. But then you have your metadata, which is structured information about an asset. So this could be the photographer, it could be the file type, it could be, trying to think of what else it could be. You have your EXIF metadata, which tells you things like file size and RGBs. So this is structured information about an asset that helps you search when you're searching for logical, objective keywords. But this is not where you're going to be able to type beach or happy child and be able to go find that asset. This is whenever you're going to be able to type in things like JPEGs by JPEGs and then a photographer name, and be able to go find assets that were photographed by a particular, say, photographer in your business. And then finally, the tags are these descriptive keywords or phrases that we use to describe the asset. And so this is where you do get subjective, but that's really a good thing because it allows everybody to be able to search for that asset in a very effective way.
Now, real quick on metadata, I know most of it in general, it's automated. It's like you said, you have a photograph, you have all the EXIF data that's fully automated and it's there. But I believe in most headless dams, including Cloudinaries, you're able to create custom metadata, right? That then people can fill out manually. So it could be a mixture of both. Is that correct?
Yes. And this is where even I myself start to find that you can blur the lines between true
Tags
metadata and tags.
Yeah.
That's why it's up to you to define your structure in the beginning, because this is an art as much as it's a science. So you do have to just build your strategy and enforce it consistently. Nobody's going to come in and give you the, you did your damn wrong if you put some tagging type categories in your structured metadata. As long as you've decided that that is the convention that you're going to use as an organization, and it is logical and consistent. Those are two very, very important things. And at Cloudinary, we do allow you to define metadata fields. We'll let you define it as a list for that consistency. Like it could be a drop-down field. You can do conditional metadata, if then kind of things where a field won't pop up until an if condition is met. And then, like you said, there is the data that is just automatically uploaded and generated whenever the file is created.
Very cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so we promised we'd give you a little bit of compare and contrast on tags, categories, and metadata. So let's talk about tags versus categories. Tags are user-defined, they're asset-specific, they're keywords that describe the content, the context, or the purpose of an asset. And they provide, as we've said, more granular information about that asset. Categories, on the other hand, very broad stroke, predefined, and they tend to apply to entire collections of assets. So going back to our travel company, they may, as I've said, split their categories as cruise and land-based, or, water-based and land-based. So those are two very broad cuts. They're objective. And those are easy ways to identify ways to divide the collection from a very high level. They are logical groups based on shared asset characteristics. And they do describe, like I said, that broad high level of content. Now, if we look at tags versus metadata, Marcelo asked a very good question. This is where things can start to get a little blurrier, but still there is theoretically a clear delineation. Metadata is going to be still a standardized set of information. This isn't where you want to allow users to go free form and put in that subjective kind of material. You do want it to be standardized. And in the Cloudinary DAM, you actually have to define each metadata field and the acceptable content. We do allow, free text fields, but for consistency's sake, we offer you things like drop-down menus and other enforcement mechanisms to keep your information consistent. It tends to describe asset attributes. It is objective and well-structured. And it typically is attached to an asset at the time of creation. Again, that's that EXIF kind of metadata that is generated anytime an image is created. And then again, at the ingestion into the DAM. And this is information that you can have as part of like what we call like an upload preset, where as you're uploading the asset into your DAM at Cloudinary, you can execute certain pieces of code against that asset to generate the values for metadata fields. So metadata is standardized and it's still objective. Tags are user-defined and very subjective and less structured. And the other difference is tags can be added by users at any time. You can have your upload preset include tags. It's not as common, but you could have it include tags. Whereas that metadata, you're either you have it at creation and you have it at upload. You can go in later and add some additional metadata, but it's not as typical as going in later after the asset has been added and created and adding in the tags. All right, so I've done a lot of talking. Let's take a quick look and see what I mean by all of this. So I have a sample image here. To me, this is a blue boat that says Atlantic City on a beach in front of a pier. I see a Ferris wheel, I see some carnival rides or amusement rides, and I see some little tiny people in the background. So there are, to me, those are probably a lot of tags. But let's take a look through the Cloudinary DAM and see what was generated for this asset. All right, so when I look at this asset in my DAM, you can see first the tags are up there. So I personally tagged it with things like Atlantic City, blue boat, blue skies, boardwalk, carnival rides, etc. Those were my impressions of the image. In our structured metadata fields, in this case, the taxonomy I chose, I wanted the file type, which was JPEG, the photographer, which I've chosen to make myself, and it was not me. And then the photo shoot date, which I marked as March 1st. And I learned that the shoot date is actually quite important. And perhaps you know this already, but one of my clients who shoots many, many, many images of vehicles, it is very important to him to be able to know the date that he was at an event or a show shooting those images, because it helps him differentiate all of the pictures that he has of a specific type of car. So you could have something like photo shoot date, which is objective and standardized, included in your structured metadata. And then we have the embedded metadata. So we've got the JFIF and the resolution and the X resolution, and there's some more information there, like about the RGB and whatnot. And that's the data that is completely objective and is generated whenever the asset is created.
So real quick, the main difference here, at least from Cloudinary's point of view, between the structured metadata and the embedded metadata, that's hard to say really fast, is that one is built in. The embedded metadata is part of the image. The other one are basically custom fields that you created for this.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And I made these for ease of use. I made the first two as free text, but theoretically, you would make them drop down, or file type you would have in your upload preset or in your scripting. You would have it.
So if you have a set of photographers, it'll be a pull down of photographers.
Yeah, it'll be a pull down, and you can pick the person.
Now I also noticed there's no spaces in the words. Is that because these can be used through the API then, like photo shoot date?
Yes, and also because I was a developer in my prior.
And you put it like that.
my prior roles, I was a developer, and I abhor spacing. So to me,
got it. So here you could have put spacing, but in the back end through the API, it would have been whatever you called it. You can call it differently. Okay.
It's better, I think, just as a best practice, as long as you have something like capitalization to make readability good for your users, you're making life easier on your developers if you avoid things like spaces and special characters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's tricky whenever you're coding.
Very cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so we see tags, we see structured metadata, and we see embedded metadata. And up in the right-hand corner, I see a little blue lightning bolt and the word auto tags. And that is where the artificial intelligence or AI assisted automatic tagging comes in. So for this image, I used the Amazon recognition add-on that's supported by Cloudinary and is available to the public, on Amazon's website. And it analyzed the image for me. And if you'll look, you can see that I set it to a confidence interval of 70. And so what this means is whenever the AI model is scanning and processing this image, it's going to produce a litany of information about it. But it has varying levels of confidence associated with that information. So if we look at water, it is 100% comfortable and confident that there's water in this image. But if we look at, say, outdoors, it's more like 88% confident. And if you look next to the little yellow dot under Amazon recognition, you'll see that it actually generated 50 tags. So 50 tags about this image that it thinks or it has analyzed that apply to the image. However, only 14 of them have a confidence interval of 70 or above. So only 14 of them will be automatically applied to my asset. The rest I will discard because I don't want irrelevant tags or incorrect tags added to my assets. So as Marcelo said, you don't want irrelevant or incorrect tags to be added because then that ruins the searchability and it increases results that your user doesn't want. But those thresholds, the minimum confidence level, is completely adjustable. So you decide how much you trust the model for your images and then deploy your auto tagging through your AI. And something that I don't have on here, but is very, very cool, is you actually have AI models that can do celebrity detection. You have AI models that can do optical character recognition. So if we ran it against this photo, it would definitely pick up the word Atlantic City. And in fact, it picked up a bunch of tiny words in the background that I would have to expand the image or magnify it greatly to see them. But as it analyzes the image kind of pixel by pixel, it picked up all of these things in the background that my human eye couldn't see. So you can even get optical character recognition through AI assistance to help categorize and tag your assets.
Now, I'm wondering, are there models that you can use? I mean, I know there are models outside of Cloudinary, but that you can use within Cloudinary to identify people, not celebrities, but let's say you're a company and you have your team in the company and you want to identify your CEO and your VP of marketing. So that way, then you can say, give me all the photos where the CEO appears.
It is possible. It is not baked into the product as a standardized feature. But I actually got to work with our AI team and our deep learning team. It's a model, right? Cloudinary has our own AI modeling. We have something called Gravity Auto, and it's G-Auto Face. So right then we can tell the algorithm to process the asset and focus in on anything it determines to be a human face. The next step, though, would be for you and your organization to provide us with training data. Right. And we would have a training data set that we then let the AI team feed to the model to train the model on identifying the CEO and identifying a vice president of marketing. Right. So you can train these models to identify niche information, but it's not baked in right then. It's not something that we have an interface to allow you to do out of the box. But definitely it's something that we've worked with customers on because we do have customers that request a lot of niche data. So you just train the model and then it's
and I think that's where the power of AI and metadata comes in, right? Because you can identify the face, then say, hey, this is the CEO, and now tag her automatically on all the other photos. So then now you've cut your work on tagging by a huge amount, right? Because you just had to tag it a couple of times, and then she's identified across all the other photos.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and like I said, this came up with 50 tags. I set the interval at 70, and I picked a kind of tricky photo on purpose. I picked a very busy photo to give the AI a bit of a workout. But I have 14 tags that when I look at them, I see only maybe 2 or 3 that actually overlap with the subjective tags that I generated as a user.
Mm-hmm.
So this is making your information and searchability for your asset that much more robust. Because I don't think as a user to put nature or outdoors. Maybe some of my marketing peers do, but those aren't words that naturally come to me. But it's cool because then the AI tagging does. It has been trained to identify those types of things. So you're just making the AI assist provide more robust data.
Yeah, and I think what's important to identify here too is that, I mean, you don't want to over tag things because, like, for example, you do have people here, but when you search for people, you probably don't want this photo because this photo has really nothing to do with people. It has to do more with a boat. It has to do more with a beachfront, waterfront kind of thing, right? So you want to also think about when you're tagging either manually or automatically like this, what is this photo about? What's the intent of this photo? And tag it appropriately. Don't over tag it because then every time you're gonna get thousands of results and then that doesn't help you, right?
Right. So you can actually choose to reject some of these automatic tags.
Right.
The AI. So if you go through and you feel that person is not relevant, like you just said, you can choose to remove that.
Right. That makes sense. Cool. All right. Thank you.
No problem. All right. So let's take a look. Automatic versus manual tagging. We just saw some of the automatic tagging generated by Amazon Recognition. And prior to that, we saw some of the tags that I manually generated. But let's think about kind of pros and cons for each of them. So automatic tagging, it's fast, it's efficient, it's consistent, tends to be accurate. However, it must be trained for specialized content. It's almost like Marcelo saw this presentation before I gave it. It's subject, though, to the limitations of its own training data and algorithms. So if it's not trained for your niche content, then it's not going to automatically generate tags for it until you train it. It does provide an enhanced user experience because it is rounding out and maximizing your relevant search results. Manual tagging, on the other hand, time-consuming, labor-intensive, inconsistent at times, and error-prone. Typos, mistakenly selecting the wrong tag from a drop-down list because you're in a hurry. There are many ways whenever you insert humans into the process for errors to happen. There's a reason we say I'm only human. And so it is error prone. But one of the cool things about being manually tagged is that we can easily capture specialized content. You as a human know what you're looking for in that image. You know what you're looking for in that video or what is meaningful and relevant to you when you're going to want to go search for that later. So in that way, manual tagging is definitely beneficial because it allows you to capture that niche data and that subjective human perspective that the AI just is not yet evolved enough to capture. You also can go in and identify and correct errors or omissions that the AI tagging system may have made. So for instance, Marcelo said, well, it tagged that image person and the people in the background are this big and you can't really see them. So definitely you could go in and remove the people tag from that because AI is not perfect, just like humans aren't perfect. It's only as perfect as its training data and its algorithms. So you can go in and, tidy up anything that the AI tagging has done. Sadly, manual tagging could harm the user experience because if you only manually tag assets, you could be limiting the search results that your users get whenever they search for assets. And also you could end up, just like AI can cause irrelevant search results, you could end up causing irrelevant search results as well. So AI is fast, it's efficient, it's automatic, has to be trained for niche cases, tends to give a better user experience when combined with manual because it gives you a very well-rounded picture. Manual, it used to be the de facto standard. It's not anymore, but manual tagging still has a place in a solid DAM. It is time consuming, it is labor intensive, it can be inconsistent, but it provides that human aspect. And that is really important for searchability whenever you have humans out there searching for assets. All right, so we looked, there's an AI solution out there. I happen to choose Amazon Recognition. That's great. but what do you look for? So you're tasked with going out and finding an AI technology for auto tagging in your dam. When you evaluate them, I can't tell you which one is going to fit you best, but I can tell you that you want to evaluate it based on accuracy, stability, scalability, the ability to integrate it with your existing systems. Can it be customized? Do you have access to provide additional training sets? Or is this a closed door policy where you can't send in a training set to help identify your CEO? And if that's a really important use case to you, then that's not the AI solution for you. And then again, always on everyone's mind now, particularly the cost. It has to fit your budget. So you may have to choose between the perfect AI tagging, which is too expensive, and an okay AI tagging solution that fits your budget. But that's a trade-off I think we make in any business decision. So accuracy, scalability, integration capabilities, customization, and cost. Those are 5 key points that you should use whenever you're evaluating any AI tagging solution for your dam. Okay. Since I only focused on recognition when I was showing the example, I did want to let you know that there are obviously many other AI tagging tools out there. I picked 5. These aren't the only ones by far, but these were ones that I thought were relevant. So Amazon Recognition, we use that here at Cloudinary. Imaga auto tagging, which we also use here at Cloudinary. Google has Google Cloud Vision. IBM Watson has a visual recognition functionality. And then Adobe Sensei also has AI-powered tagging and recognition capabilities. So any of those links are live whenever the presentation comes out later. You can click on the links and go check out those AI tagging tools and see if they would work for your organization. Oh, and by the way, all of these are able to process not only images, but videos. And they all happen to be cloud-based, except Adobe. I think Adobe Sensei is, it's actually a grouping of tools and functionality. So I can't say 100% that it is fully cloud-based, but they all are capable of analyzing images and videos. All right. I can't believe it. You made it. You made it through this scintillating and totally interesting material. In conclusion, a strong dam needs a strong taxonomy. That's how you're going to get the most value out of your digital assets. And tagging is a key component of any taxonomy. You have to be able to provide the human element into the objective information. So tagging lets artificial intelligence provide specific asset details that aren't captured in the other taxonomy structures. And then when all of the various components of the taxonomy are populated for an asset, you've maximized your searchability and your discoverability, which means that when your users are out there looking for assets, they'll be able to find it. And then in the end, you get more value out of each asset. So build a good taxonomy. Take the time to plan it first. Include manual and artificial intelligence assisted tagging. And this will give you your best search results and the most usability across the organization out of the assets that you've generated. So thank you for listening today. I really appreciate your time.
Angela, you did fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I mean, so much. So it's so important. And I think sometimes corporations don't understand how important tagging taxonomy is for structured and unstructured content, right? To be able to find it. And more importantly, not just find it, but also be able to update it, right? Because that's most of the problem comes in the content debt that you have where it's all old or it doesn't match. And then that turns into a bad customer experience. Because, for example, if you have an app and you have images of that app, and that's an image that's 6 months old and your app already changed 10 times, now you have something, you've got customers that are mad, right? So tagging and managing all of this, I think it's extremely important.
I agree. I agree. And you're right. That client that I mentioned that photographs cars, having the most recent image of each of those assets is extremely important because their socials team
Right.
up images to post out to their social channels weekly. And they don't want content from 6 months ago. They want the content that the photographer shot last week
Right.
to be most relevant. So you definitely, you need that structured and that unstructured data there to keep your content fresh.
Yeah, most definitely. Angela, thank you so much. You did fantastic. I appreciate you sharing all that knowledge. If people want to get hold of you, that email is the best.
Yes, yes, that email is the best.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Angela. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks to the rest of you. If you want to learn more about Angela, we have that great interview with her in the overview section, so go check that out. And also, I hope you enjoyed this bootcamp. This is the last lesson. I'm going to miss working with Cloudinary. They were great, lots of information here. But remember, you can go and take the knowledge certification. It'll be available probably in a day or so for the advanced. The foundations one is there already. So go do that and then post that certificate everywhere and tell everybody that you know how to work with headless dams and specifically Cloudinary. And as always, if you want to get a hold of me, Marcelo@headlesscreator.com. So it's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this bootcamp, and we'll see you. Cheers.